AITA for selling my girlfriend's car and locking her out after a secret trip with her ex? I am 30 years old and she is 28. We were together for almost 2 years, and we lived under the same roof in my apartment for the last one. I will not pretend that everything was perfect before the text. The previous weeks had been weird. I noticed she was colder, more distant, as if she were somewhere else even when she was sitting right next to me. Even so, I never thought everything was about to break. At least that was what I wanted to believe. It was a pretty normal Tuesday night. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner like any other day when I got her message. She told me that things felt complicated, that she needed space to think and clear her head. She was very clear in asking me not to contact her until she decided she was ready. I will not exaggerate. That message hit me like a blunt blow. When someone says they need space, it almost always means that something is already broken. Still, I tried to react maturely. I replied that I understood and that she should take all the time she needed. After that, total silence. And since she herself asked for no contact, I decided to respect it to the letter. The following days I dedicated myself to cleaning the apartment. It was not dirty. I just needed to occupy my mind with something mechanical, something that would not force me to think too much. I was confused and hurt. I kept asking myself what exactly she meant by complicated. Work was my only real distraction until Friday came. That night, I was bored scrolling on Instagram without much interest when I saw that a mutual friend had tagged Brooke. I clicked out of pure curiosity, and there she was, bright sun, beach, cocktails in hand, and hugging Logan, her 29-year-old ex-boyfriend. The same guy who, according to her, was ancient history. The caption said something like living our best life island getaway, reunited. I felt my blood run cold. So space to think meant a tropical vacation with her ex while I stayed home respecting her silence. At that moment, something inside me suddenly snapped into place. The pain was still there, of course, but it transformed into a cold and very lucid clarity. It was not out of control anger. It was an almost surgical logic. She did not want space to reflect. She wanted me out of the way while she test drove her previous relationship again. And meanwhile, I was still paying for the apartment, holding everything together, functioning as a silent plan B in case the other thing did not work out. Then I thought, you want space? Perfect. I am going to give it to you. The next morning I called a locksmith and changed the deadbolt and the lock on the apartment. It cost me $250, and I can say without hesitation that every penny was worth the peace of mind it gave me. From that moment on, her key was useless. Then there was the issue of the car. About 6 months ago, Brooke's old car finally died. She needed something reliable for her digital marketing job because she said she had a lot of meetings with clients. The problem was her credit history. It was not good, so I decided to help. I bought a pretty decent used Mazda CX-5 for about $8,000. But here is the important part. The loan, the title, and the insurance were exclusively in my name. Legally, the car was 100% mine. The agreement was that she would pay me monthly installments, which she mostly did, and she would use it as if it were hers. She decorated it, put fuzzy dice in it, personalized it to her liking, but I never added her to the title or the insurance. So I took the spare key I always kept and drove to a trusted dealership that buys used cars. I explained that I was the registered owner and that I wanted to sell it. After a quick look over, they offered me about $6,500 pending a full inspection and title verification. I agreed to start the process, signed the preliminary paperwork, and left the car there. They told me it would take a few days to finalize everything. I took an Uber back home. Her parking spot at the complex was left empty. Her things were still in the closet of the spare bedroom. I did not throw them away or pack them up. That would have felt petty to me, but I was not going to let her waltz into my apartment like nothing happened either, especially when she herself had asked for no contact. I felt strangely calm, as if I were performing a necessary surgery, painful, yes, but inevitable. Of course I was hurt, very hurt. I felt naive, even a bit foolish. But what drove me was not anger. It was consistency. She asked for space and took it in the clearest way possible. I was simply respecting her decision and protecting my home and my assets. According to her stories, the best island life would last 1 more week. So I decided to wait and see what would happen when she returned. And she did return. It was the following Tuesday, around 9 in the evening. I was on the couch watching TV, trying to ignore the constant knot in my stomach when I heard the jingle of keys at the door. Then the sound of a key trying to turn. Silence. Then, more attempts, increasingly insistent. Finally, knocking on the door. Tyler, what is going on? Open up. I recognized her voice. She sounded annoyed, not scared. I still took a deep breath and opened it just a few inches, leaving the chain on. There she was, tanned, with her suitcase next to her and a clearly irritated expression. My key is not working. What did you do to the lock? I changed it. I replied calmly. She blinked several times. What? Why would you do that? You asked for space and no contact. I gave it to you permanently. Her expression went from confusion to anger in a matter of seconds. What are you talking about? I just needed time. You cannot lock me out like this. I saw the pictures with Logan. I said without raising my voice. It looks like you already figured out what you needed to think about. Her face changed. For an instant, behind the anger, I saw a flash of panic. That was just a trip. It did not mean anything. We are friends. I raised an eyebrow. Friends who go on a romantic getaway together while her boyfriend stays home, respecting her silence. Tyler, do not be ridiculous. Let me in. My things are in there. And where's my car? She looked toward the empty parking lot, as if the world could not possibly have changed in her absence. Where's my car? She repeated, assuming everything should be exactly as she left it. I stared at her. First, this is my apartment, I said firmly. Second, the car was never yours. Legally, it is in my name, and I am selling it. It is at the dealership. Her jaw dropped. You are selling it? She blurted out as if she had not heard right. Yes, I replied without changing my tone. You cannot do that. I paid for that car. I looked right at her. You made payments to use it, Brooke. You did not buy it. The loan, the title, and the insurance were always in my name. Legally, it is mine, and the sale process has already started. Her reaction was instantaneous. This is madness. You are robbing me. I am going to call the police. She pulled out her phone with determination and held it up as if she were about to dial. I shrugged. Go ahead, call them. Explain to them that your ex changed the lock on his own apartment after you asked for no contact and went on vacation with another ex. And while you are at it, tell them he is selling a car that is registered and insured solely in his name. Then tell me how it went. The phone hung suspended in the air halfway to her ear. She hesitated. You could tell she was doing the mental math. Then her expression changed. It was no longer just anger. There was something deeper, darker. You are a horrible person. You planned all this. I held her gaze. I planned it. You organized a vacation with your ex while asking me for absolute silence. I only respected what you asked for and acted accordingly. You have no right to put me on pause in my own home while you decide what to do with your life. At that moment, I heard footsteps approaching from the parking lot. It was her 26-year-old sister Paige. Evidently, she had been waiting downstairs. What is going on? She asked upon arriving. Brooke took advantage of the scene. Suddenly, she started crying. He changed the lock. He is selling my car. He is throwing me out. Paige turned to me indignantly. Are you serious? After everything she has done for you, you throw her out and sell her things. I took a deep breath before answering. It is my apartment, Paige, and the car was mine too. She asked for no contact and went on vacation with Logan. You can check her Instagram if you want. For me, this ended there. She just needed space, Paige insisted. You were supposed to support her, not punish her. I shook my head. Support her while she went on vacation with her ex like that? No thanks. She made a choice. Now she has to own it. Brooke, amidst tears and rage, demanded to come inside right that second to take her things. Not tonight, I replied firmly. Arrange a day and a time. Send me a message and I will have everything ready by the door. You are not coming in past the foyer. You cannot impose rules, she retorted. Of course I can. It is my apartment. My rules. You want a no contact. This is the new kind of contact. You text me with the time and that is it. Goodbye. I closed the door and fastened the deadbolt. I noticed my hands were shaking a bit. It was not fear. It was an intense mix of adrenaline, accumulated pain, and surprisingly, relief. For about 5 more minutes, I heard yelling outside. Brooke upset, Paige trying to calm her down, although also adding fuel to the fire. Finally, they left. Hours later, I received a message. It was not from Brooke, but from Paige's phone. Brooke needs her things tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Be ready. Not a please, not a thank you, just an order. I simply replied okay. That night, I packed everything. Clothes, toiletries, Books, small decorative items, everything I found I placed into boxes and stacked it by the door. In a way, it was a liberating process, like physically closing a chapter that was already dead. Meanwhile, later that week, I think on Thursday, the dealership called me. The inspection was complete. The final offer was $6,350, a small adjustment for tire wear. On Friday, I went in person, signed the final title transfer, and they handed me the check. I deposited it that same day. It was not just the money. It was a sense of closure, an expensive and emotionally draining chapter that was finally left behind. The next day was time to pick up her things. I already sensed there would be drama, and I was not wrong. On Wednesday at 10 o'clock sharp, there was a knock on the door. It was not Brooke. It was Paige and their mother, Susan. According to them, Brooke was in the car because she was too upset to see me. Right. Susan started almost immediately, her eyes shining, full of tears or something that looked a lot like it. Tyler, how could you do this to her? After 2 years, she loves you. I looked at her without getting worked up. Apparently not enough to not go on vacation with her ex while asking me for space. It was a mistake, Susan said. She was confused. You should forgive her. And selling her car was cruel. She needs it for work. It was my car. Legally mine. I replied calmly. And her confusion was a betrayal. Choices have consequences. Besides, the car is already sold. I opened the door a little wider so they could see the stacked boxes in the foyer. Here is all her stuff. Take it, and make sure you do not leave anything. This is the only chance. Susan frowned. We need to check the closets, the bathroom. You cannot just leave us with this, and that is it. I shook my head. I packed everything I found. You are not coming in past here. Do not be irrational, Tyler. If I forgot something, that is too bad. I am staying right here. You take the boxes. That is the deal. It was obvious they wanted to force their way in, maybe argue more or look for something they could later claim I kept, but I was not going to allow it. Amidst muttering and complaining, they started loading the boxes. It took them 3 trips. During the whole process, Susan did not stop talking. She called me insensitive. She said Brooke was devastated, that I owed her money for the car. I barely responded. I repeated the same thing over and over. It was my car. I sounded like a broken record, but it was the truth. When they finally left, I thought everything was over. I was wrong. The messages started shortly after. This time they really were from Brooke. She alternated between 2 completely opposite extremes, tearful apologies and rage-filled demands. I miss you. I made a huge mistake. Please, come back to me. And minutes later, you owe me money for the car. That was my money. I am going to take you to small claims court. I completely ignored the emotional texts. To the financial threats, I replied only once. Brooke, the car was legally mine. The title, the loan, and the insurance were in my name. Your payments were for usage during the time you drove it. Consider it a rental, nothing more. Then I blocked her number. I also blocked Paige and Susan. But the story did not end there. Before long, some mutual friends started messaging me. People who, to be honest, I knew more through her than on my own. And judging by the tone of the first few messages, it was clear that someone had already told their version of the story. The messages that started arriving had a clearly accusatory tone. Hey, they told me what you did to Brooke. It was pretty cold to sell her car like that. It was obvious someone was spreading a very convenient version of events. In that narrative, I was the spiteful villain who had thrown her out of the house and taken her car. The funny thing is that the part about the vacation with Logan disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. To the few people I considered reasonable, I calmly explained everything. The message where she asked for no contact, the public photos with her ex, and the key detail that the car was entirely in my name. I told them exactly what happened, without exaggerations or embellishments. I let the rest think whatever they wanted. Reactions were mixed. Some understood immediately when they heard my side. Others preferred to stick with the more dramatic story Brooke was telling. And being honest, people usually believe whatever fits best with what they already want to think. I cannot control that. What had surprised me was what happened next. Yesterday, I received a call from the building manager's office. They informed me that there was an anonymous complaint about alleged disturbances and loud arguments coming from my apartment. According to the report, someone was worried about potential confrontations. For a second, I felt a chill. It sounded too strategic, almost as if someone were trying to create formal problems for me. Luckily, I have a good relationship with the manager. I calmly explained to him that my ex-girlfriend lived with me, although she was not on the lease, and that after the breakup she had moved out. I admitted that there was a brief argument in the hallway when she returned and discovered that I changed the lock after she herself asked for no contact and went on vacation with her ex. I also clarified that her mother and sister only came to pick up her belongings under my supervision and that there was no disturbance inside the apartment. The manager understood. He told me he would make a record of it, but that as long as there were no more verifiable complaints or real incidents, the matter would not go any further. I am almost certain that report came from Brooke or Paige. It was a low blow, and as if something else was missing, the extra factor appeared. I received a message request on Instagram from Logan. I did not even open it. I deleted it and blocked him instantly. I do not need to hear anything from him. Whether it was to brag, justify himself, or provoke, I am not interested at all. If all these attempts achieved anything, the accusations, the anonymous complaint, the manipulation attempts, it was to reinforce my decision. They did not make me feel guilty. On the contrary, they made me feel completely justified. This stopped being a mistake by Brooke. It became a clear demonstration of who she is and the environment that surrounds her. Paige, Susan, everyone reinforcing the victim narrative. I was not executing any master plan of revenge. I simply let reality take its course. The apartment is secure and in my name. The complaint did not go anywhere. The car is sold and the money is in my account. Her things are no longer here. Communication is blocked on all fronts. As a precaution, I consulted briefly with a lawyer. I just wanted to be sure. He confirmed that my legal position regarding the car and the apartment was solid. He also explained that if the threats or harassment continued, I could easily send a formal cease and desist letter. What disappointed me the most was seeing how far they were willing to go. They really thought they could intimidate or manipulate me into returning to the comfortable situation that Brooke ruined. That is not how things work. Now my focus is different, sorting out the emotional mess that was left behind. It hurts to accept that someone you shared so much with can act with that level of deceit and arrogance, but I would rather find out now and not later when the damage would have been much greater. Final update. About 2 months have passed since Brooke came back from her thinking trip with Logan. Everything has calmed down quite a bit, largely because I stopped feeding into any kind of drama after the last confrontation. The campaign to paint me as the villain lasted for a while. I lost some mutual friends, mostly the ones who barely knew me and stuck with the more scandalous version. And honestly, it was a good purge. If someone takes sides without hearing both versions, they are not someone I need in my life. My real friends, the ones who knew me from before Brooke, were there. They listened to everything, saw the proof, and supported me 100%. Brooke tried to escalate the matter legally. I received a pretty threatening letter from a lawyer who, to be honest, seemed improvised. They demanded $10,000 for her alleged contributions to the car and for emotional distress. The letter was full of mistakes and weak arguments. My response was simple and direct. The lawyer I consulted sent a very clear formal letter. He included copies of the car title, the loan contract, and the insurance policy, all exclusively in my name. He also explained that Brooke's payments corresponded to the use of the vehicle during the time she drove it. In other words, it was equivalent to a rental. He even mentioned that if usage was calculated by mileage according to standard rates, she might have ended up owing money. That was more to make the point clear than anything else, but it was effective. In addition, we attached a copy of the original text where she asked for space and no contact, along with public screenshots of her vacation photos with Logan, with visible date and time. The letter closed with a clear warning. Any further unfounded claims or attempts at harassment would result in a restraining order and a claim for legal fees. After that, absolute silence. I imagine her lawyer explained to her that she did not have a solid case, and paying for a real legal battle was never an option for her, especially without my financial support. Through a third party, I found out what happened next. Brooke moved in with Paige for a while. Apparently, that caused friction because Brooke expected her sister to practically fund her lifestyle without her putting in too much effort. The truth is, none of that surprised me. As expected, Logan disappeared as soon as the vacation ended and the fantasy came to a close. He had no interest in carrying the drama that came afterward. He enjoyed his getaway, lived his little adventure, and then simply vanished. I also found out that Brooke tried to emotionally pressure her parents into giving her money. From what I heard, she got something, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle she was used to when she lived with me. The latest news that reached me is that she returned to her hometown and moved back into her parents' house. Apparently, she complains constantly about how unfair life is and how I ruined everything. Not an ounce of self-reflection, zero remorse, just a permanent victim mentality. And now comes the best part, the silence. No messages, no threats, no drama. My apartment felt like my home again. Last weekend, I painted the living room and changed some of the furniture she had picked out. It might seem like a simple thing, but reclaiming the space, redecorating it to my liking, has been almost therapeutic. It is as if every physical change also helped sort out the emotional ones. In the end, my revenge was not loud or spectacular. There was no yelling or theatrical scenes. It was something much simpler, quiet, methodical, and based on clear boundaries. And honestly, there is nothing more powerful than that. If I think about it carefully, all I did was take her request to the letter. She asked for no contact, and I respected it. I let the natural consequences of her choices run their course without stepping in to cushion them. She wanted space. She ended up having all the space in the world. She decided to prioritize an adventure with her ex. Then she had to face what came next all alone. For a long time, she took my support, my apartment, and the car for granted, as if all of that were part of a guaranteed permanent package no matter what she did. But those things existed on a very solid foundation, trust. And the moment she broke that trust, everything else crumbled with it. The car she considered hers, that little symbol of status and apparent independence, became unavailable. And yes, I admit it, selling it while she was tanning on the beach with another guy carried a pretty strong irony. I will not pretend I did not feel a certain satisfaction. That empty parking space when she returned was almost poetic. A visible, tangible consequence, impossible to ignore. Not only did she lose a relationship, she lost the comfort she took for granted. She lost the stability that I was silently holding up. Of course, all of this affected me. Processing the betrayal was not easy. It took me time to accept that someone I supported so much could act that way. But instead of reacting out of anger or impulse, I chose to act out of logic. I protected myself. I set boundaries. I refused to be the man who waits patiently while being kept as a backup plan. She thought she could play both sides, keep me on pause while she checked if her past suited her better. She thought I would still be there available, funding her stability while she experimented. She was wrong. She miscalculated. And when reality caught up with her, her arrogance could not rescue her. The most satisfying thing of all was not the conflict or the drama. It was seeing that the consequences were direct and proportional to her own choices. Nothing exaggerated, nothing excessive, nothing vindictive, just logic at work. And being honest, it was the best thing that could happen. Saying goodbye to Brooke was, in the end, a liberation. Comment: I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this with me today. I believe protecting your own peace is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself. When you set firm boundaries, you are showing real self-respect. Taking responsibility for your happiness, instead of waiting for others to do it, can be truly freeing. Healing often begins the moment we stop accepting what hurts us. I hope you feel encouraged to choose yourself with love and clarity. Responding calmly and clearly is much more powerful than reacting with anger. You deserve relationships that bring calm rather than constant uncertainty. Remember that your well-being matters, and it is okay to prioritize it. Let's keep choosing peace and self-respect in our daily lives. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.